Steve Shaffer, and we're going to continue our reading in John, beginning in John chapter 7, verse 1. After this, Jesus went around in Galilee. He did not want to go about in Judea because the Jewish leaders there were looking for a way to kill him. But when the Jewish festival of tabernacles was near, Jesus' brothers said to him, "Leave Galilee and go to Judea, so that your disciples there may see the works you do. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you are doing these things, show yourself to the world." For even his own brothers did not believe in him. Therefore Jesus told them, "My time is not yet here. For you any time will do. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me, because I testify that its works are evil. You go to the festival. I am not going up to this festival, because my time has not yet fully come." Having said this, he stayed in Galilee. However, after his brothers had left for the festival, he went also. Not publicly, but in secret. Now at the festival, the Jewish leaders were watching for Jesus and asking, "Where is he?" Among the crowds there was widespread whispering about him. Some said, "He is a good man." Others replied, "No, he deceives the people." But no one would say anything publicly about him, for fear of the leaders. Jesus is going to the Feast of Tabernacles. It's one of the migration feasts that the Jews celebrated, and it's described in Leviticus chapter 23, verses 39 to 43. In it, people would build tents or live in tents for 7 days, and they would celebrate the harvest and God's gracious gifts, especially remembering what he did for them in the wilderness as they left Egypt. So it continues the Exodus motif that we saw in chapter 6. During the festival, on days 2 through 6, there were typically 3 processions that the priests would lead. The second of those processions was when the priests would lead a group of people, and they would leave the temple, they would go to the pool of Siloam, draw water, and return and pour that water out on the altar as a libation offering. The discussion that Jesus is having between his brothers is a discussion about to go up publicly or to go up secretly. And the interaction we see here between his brothers and himself reminds us of the interaction he had with his mother at the wedding at Cana, where she begins to tell him what to do, just like his brothers are telling him what to do. Other people seem to want to manage Jesus' career, but Jesus will not put his career into the hands of the crowds, his mother, or his brothers. And he claims that his time is not yet here. This reference to time is yet another one of those hour references where Jesus is referring to the moment of his final death, burial, resurrection, and ascension. So the words "going up," when he says "going up to Jerusalem for this festival," is also a dual meaning word, which is one of John's favorite vocabulary selections. It's dual meaning in that it was the common way that people would talk about going to Jerusalem, because there was a slight hill that Jerusalem was on, but it's also a reference to Jesus' ascension. So we find that even this story is anchored in the death, burial, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus, which will serve as the final sign that he is returning to heaven, just like he came from heaven. Now apparently there is a contradiction, because Jesus says, "I'm not going up to this festival," but then after his brothers leave, he goes up. But the text is very clear that he goes up in secret. So what Jesus was saying to his brothers is, "I am not going to go up and publicly make a stand at this festival." Instead, he is going to go up secretly. It also reminds us of the conversation he had with his mother. And she asks him to do something about the wine in Cana. He says, "Woman, why do you bother me?" But then he does it. He turns the water into wine. The word translated whispering here is the word to grumble. So yet again we have this extension of the Exodus motif from chapter 6, and the crowds are still grumbling. This time they're grumbling about who is this person. The leaders don't know, the crowds don't know. Continuing in verse 14. Not until halfway through the festival did Jesus go up to the temple courts and begin to teach. The Jews there were amazed and asked, "How did this man get such learning without having been taught?" Jesus answered, "My teaching is not my own. It comes from the one who sent me. Anyone who chooses to do the will of God will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. Whoever speaks on their own does so to gain personal glory, but he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him. Has not Moses given you the law? Yet not one of you keeps the law. Why are you trying to kill me? You're demon-possessed, the crowd answered. Who is trying to kill you? Jesus said to him, I did one miracle, and you are all amazed. Yet, because Moses gave you circumcision, you circumcise a boy on the Sabbath. Now if a boy can be circumcised on the Sabbath, so that the law of Moses may not be broken, why are you angry with me for healing a man's whole body on the Sabbath? Stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. This last verse, the instead judge correctly, is going to be the interpretive key of what's going on in this section. But let's back up and deal with the fact that Jesus arrives secretly in the middle of the festival. So somewhere around day 3, perhaps day 4, in the middle of this 7-day celebration, Jesus shows up and he goes right to the heart of the celebration and begins teaching in the temple courts. He then refers back to the Sabbath day controversy that occurred in chapter 5, when he healed the man by the pool. He did that on a Sabbath, and he was accused of breaking the Sabbath, just as the man was accused of breaking the Sabbath by carrying his mat. And so both of these stories, the one in chapter 5 and now in chapter 7, we find that the focus of the Jews is on following the law of Moses. They are judging merely on the words and the precepts of the law of Moses, and they are not discerning God's will, his purpose, and they're not able to untangle apparent controversies within the law. It's right to heal the whole man versus only part of the man. Now they are able to make decisions about whether it's right to circumcise on the Sabbath or not, and so they weigh the priorities of circumcision versus Sabbath observance. But here Jesus is telling them, you're judging my ministry based on wooden kinds of assessments, but you're not able to discern the movements of God, God's purpose, his intent, his desire. God's desire is to redeem and to heal, not simply rule following. This goes back again to Isaiah chapter 11, where it depicts an expectation that the Messiah would judge rightly. And it links that judging rightly with a decision to help the needy. The Isaiah expectation of a Messiah is that he would be wise and he would make a right judgment. And although the crowds and the Jewish rulers are claiming to know the scriptures and claiming to be wise, they don't reflect on the fact that this could be an actual sign of Jesus being a Messiah. Instead, they use it as a sign to prove that he is not the Messiah. They are only judging based on what they see, not on making right judgments.